So we discussed till here yesterday. It's utility and profitability. What is utility and what is profitability? How do you create value when you have a utility minus the cost? So $15 minus $12 cost, $3 is the created value. Okay? $15 minus the price. Okay, utilities, let's say the price. Okay, it's $15 minus the price, the selling price, let's say it is $14, then it is consumer surplus. That $1 is a consumer surplus because they're getting more value for the same product at a same price. Okay, so that's utility and profit. So today we'll study durability of competitive advantage. So what is the durability? How long will the competitive advantage last? How long can a company have the competitive advantage? There are some factors which influence the competitive advantage. Okay? Barriers to imitation. What do you mean by imitation? Okay, they say imitation is the best form of flattery, right? So barriers to imitation, creating the same product, that is imitation. Okay. So barriers to imitation are factors that make it difficult for a competitor to imitate the company's distinctive competencies, such as patents. So if you want to use or make a product like that, you need to pay royalty to the person who holds the patent. So your cost goes up, right? That is a barrier to creating a similar product. Okay? It could also be a copyright. It could be patent. It could be a copyright. It could be anything which which prevents another person or another company from manufacturing a same product with the distinctive feature which the original product has. Okay, the capability of competitors to imitate the company's competitive advantage based on the prior strategic commitments and the absorptive capacity. So it could be that the competitor has a cost advantage. Okay, so the competitor, the company has a cost advantage, and the competitor does not have a cost advantage because he's a new entrant. Okay, for example, if you take Maruti Suzuki, it has a cost advantage because its factories are old. They are more than 20 years, 25 years old. The machines are already depreciated. They are still producing goods. Okay, even though the machines are well depreciated, they are still in production, especially the main plant. Okay, the first plant which Maruti set up. So if a new company comes in and sets up a manufacturing facility, sets up a car manufacturing facility, it won't be able to match that with of Maruti Suzuki because the cost will be high for it to set up a factory. So the cost advantage which Maruti has, the competitor will not have. Okay, so that's a strategy which Maruti is able to adopt. It is able to price its cars very competitively and capture the market share. Also, another advantage which Maruti made use of is technology. Okay, it tied up with Suzuki and it first entrant into the market when only Fiats and ambassadors were there, which were using outdated technologies, outdated engines. Okay, Maruti came into the market with the latest technology and captured a lot of the market. Competitors' prior strategic commitments are commitments to specific ways of doing business. Once a company makes a strategic commitment, it will be difficult for it to respond to a new competition if it would require changing its commitments. Okay, sometimes the competitive advantage gets eroded because it has already made commitments. Okay, it has already invested money or it has already invested time and efforts into a particular strategy. Now, if it has to change the strategy because there is a competition, it becomes difficult. Then the competitive edge might get eroded, it might be lost. Okay, absorptive capacity means the company's ability to make use of the new knowledge. Okay? So for example, in technology, you'll find this very frequently. Technology becomes outdated, especially in the software industry, isn't it? New languages come up. So if the company finds it difficult to adapt to knowledge, okay, then it will lose a competitive advantage. Okay, those are what it is. So you see, digitization. When the old companies were more service oriented, whether you take Infosys or Tech Mahindra, they were more service oriented. So slowly they had to adopt to digitization, where digitization and cloud computing became the new norm. The companies who did not change, the companies who were committed to the old method, lost the competitive advantage. Okay, that's about durability of the competitive advantage. The next is durability again. The dynamism. This is the third point. So the 2 points are: one, barriers; two, capability of the competitors to imitate the company's competitive advantage; and the third one is the dynamism of the industry environment, or how rapidly industry is changing. The dynamism of industry is a part of external environment. When an industry is changing rapidly, a company with competitive advantage may quickly find its market position by competitor with a new innovation. Software industry is the best example. Okay, look at IBM. At one time, IBM was a leader, right? It was a world leader. If people 25, 30 years back who know about IBM, it was a world leader. Okay, but because it did not adapt to the new technologies, it lost its competitive advantage, right? And who took over? Companies like Amazon, which started cloud computing. Amazon, cloud computing. It's the biggest, in today's world in cloud computing. Not only that, even if you look at the laptops which were manufactured by IBM, okay, they were slowly became outdated because they were not improvising on the technology part of it. They were continuing to use the same old standard old chips, whereas other companies, not IBM, other companies started manufacturing laptops with newer technology, with newer chips. So they overtook IBM, and IBM lost its competitive advantage. Okay. Then the fourth point is using internal analysis. Okay. So what did we talk about? We spoke about and how do you use internal analysis? That's the next part of it, third part of it. Focus on all four generic building blocks of competitive advantage: superior efficiency, quality, innovation, and responsiveness to customers. So if you start using these in your routine activities, in your daily activities, in your daily production, you'll be able to gain some amount of competitive advantage. Do not become so focused on one of them that the others are neglected. So don't focus only on quality. You best quality, but don't lose out on efficiency. Don't lose out on innovation. Don't forget that it's the customer who ultimately gives you business. Continuous improvement and continuous learning. Okay, things change so quickly that only way to maintain a competitive advantage is to continuously improve the four generally generic building blocks. Okay, you must focus on learning. Okay, so it's a continuous Kanban, lean management, total quality management. So it's all continuous improvement processes and learning processes, seeking ways to improve operations and creating new competencies. You need to continuously analyze the process that underlies its efficiency, quality, innovation, and responsiveness to customers. It needs to be able to learn from its mistakes and continuously seek out ways to improve its process. So you don't stop after you achieve a goal. You look at how you can do or how you can make that better. So if you developed a new product, okay, fine, that is innovation. But how can you improve the utility of that product further for the customer? So the customer is always the focus. So you use internal analysis to continuously improve on quality, innovation, efficiency, and customer service or responsiveness to customers. Thus, you can maintain your competitive advantage. Identify and adopt best industrial practices through benchmarking in order to contribute to superior efficiency, quality, innovation, and responsive customers. What is benchmarking? So you have an industry leader, or you have a segment leader, or you have a business unit leader. It could also be a department leader. Okay. So there is one department which is continuously being more efficient than other departments. So you can benchmark your department's efficiency against that department, which is having continuous efficiency in its production, okay, to achieve the set goals. This is a way a company builds and maintains the resources and capabilities that support efficiency, quality, innovation, and responsiveness to customers. So you are trying to improve yourself by trying to match your level of whether it is production, innovation, quality, or customer responsiveness, to a benchmark, to a standard set by another department, another business unit, another company. It could be anything. You overcome the internal forces of inertia within the organization that create barriers to change. So you try to break the barriers. Basically, that is what they say. You try to break the barriers. Once the barriers to change have been identified, good leadership and appropriate changes in the organization structure and control systems are required in order to implement the changes. So you have identified the barriers. So now you break the barriers. How do you break the barriers? by having good leadership, okay, by having capable leaders and making the necessary changes within the structure of the organization, whether it is the hierarchy, or whether creating new positions, or identifying suitable people for the posts which are there, by creating good leaders and putting in place a control system. Okay, there is a required order to implement the changes is well executed. It is followed in spirit and in action. So that's about the 10. Then the fourth is formulating. So we saw mission and vision, then external environment, then internal environment. Now the fourth one is formulating strategies. The fourth step in the strategic planning process is formulating the strategy. Okay? So you use a SWOT analysis to perform and identify what your strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats are. What must be done to improve and what can be taken advantage of. So your strength is your what you can take advantage of, what you can exploit for the benefit of the organization. And what is your weakness? Where is it that you need to work on? So you have a good, efficient process. Okay, your productivity is very good. So that is your strength. You exploit that. But the weakness of your, entire manufacturing could be, or your production could be that the quality is not up to the mark. So that is the weakness you need to work on. How do you improve the quality? Okay, and then you look at what are the opportunities that you can improve the quality. So you will look at, is it that you can get a good quality material cheaper, or is it a training need which is required for the employees so that they can produce quality goods, whatever it is. And then you look at threat. So how do you maintain your competitive advantage? What is the threat to your competitive advantage? Is it a new technology which is coming or rapidly changing, or is it an entry of a new competitor? What is it that is causing, or which could take away your competitive advantage? Okay, so you will strategize on that. SWOT analysis includes generating a series of strategic alternatives that can be pursued. So it is not only about one strategy, it is also about alternatives. Plan A does not work, then you have a plan B. If plan B does not work, you have plan C. And out of all these plans, you adopt one which has a higher success rate. How do you classify strategies? Strategies can be classified into functional level, business level, global level, and corporate level strategy. What is functional level strategy? Functional level strategies are developed to improve the effectiveness of the company's operations. So it is more at a ground level, more at a function level. So production is a function, isn't it? So functional level strategy is a production level strategy. It improves the effectiveness of operations, improves the company's ability to achieve superior efficiency, quality, innovation, and customer responsiveness. Different ways are there to achieve a functional level strategy. Okay, so some of them are Kanban, Six Sigma, Lean. These are all functional level strategies. Okay, but they can be applied to other areas also, but they're usually used in functional level. Okay, that's about functional level strategies. Business level strategy, next level. So it's one step above functional level strategy, business strategy. Business level strategies relate to businesses' position in the market. So in relation to the market, in relation to the what do you say, the economy, in relation to the market, in relation to the economy, how are you positioned? What is your business? How is your business performing in relation to your competitors? In the market. Successful selection and pursuit of business model is what permits a company to compete effectively. Okay? So, what is the method you're adopting? Are you looking at being a market leader? Are you looking at being a to capture a market, or are you looking at supplying only to a niche market where your products are well accepted because of certain unique features, or unique quality, even though they're priced higher than a regular product? So what kind of a business strategy are you adopting? Are you going to flood the market with your products, or are you going to release your products into the market in a staggered manner so that you are creating some kind of an artificial demand? So all these are business strategies. Okay, business level strategies that create competitive advantage contribute to a successful business model. In developing its business model, a company must define its business first. Defining its business includes three sets of decisions. Okay, so defining the business, there are three steps or three set of decisions. What are those? Business level decisions are: one, decision about customers' needs and what needs are to be satisfied. You cannot satisfy all the customers at all the time. Understand that very clearly. You cannot satisfy all the customers at all the time. So who are you going to target? Which are the customers you're going to target? And what are the needs of those customers that you target? You might not be able to fulfill all the needs. Okay. So take the example of a mixer. Okay. So you might identify that you want to a lower income group or with your mixer, a product which you have developed, a mixer. So you cannot target all the customers because a quality conscious or a sophisticated customer might not buy your mixer because it is not that not that what I would say well developed or not that advanced. Okay, so you are looking to target a lower income group who are first time buyers of mixer. Okay, because you are low income group and because you are first time buyers of mixer, you would have to keep your price very low because not a lot of them will be able to afford. Now, to ensure that a lot of the lower income people buy a mixer, you have to keep your price low, and to keep your price low you have to cut down on the features. Okay, the features that you're going to supply. So you will look at supplying a mixer with 1 or 2 jars instead of having a full food processor kind of a unit. Okay, to keep your cost low and to target first time buyers of mixers. So that is how you identify your customers needs and what needs are you going to satisfy. You identify which customer and then the needs. Decision about what products should be offered and to which customer groups. That's exactly what I mentioned. So which product? So you might have a mixer which is only 1 jar with basic utility. You might have a middle category of mixer where you have 3 jars, which is a slightly advanced version of the basic one, and then you might have a full food processor unit. Okay, so which product will go to which customers? Okay, you can't sell a food processor unit to a first time buyer of a mixer because one, they they wouldn't want that complicated and sophisticated product. Two, the cost is higher. Okay, three, there are a lot of things which go into it, because they might not be using those kind of ingredients or preparations that they need a food processor. So you would also look at all of this decisions about what product should be offered and to which customer group. Okay, along with your customers needs. So the third point is decision about how customer needs are to be satisfied using the company's distinctive competency. So you have now identified the lower income group, you have identified the product you're going to offer to them. How are you going to be distinctive, okay, from your competitors? How are you going to be unique? So you could be having a product which is costing low but has the same utility as the competitors. That could be one way. Or you could be having a product which is priced same as a competitor, but the value the customer gets out of that product because you're adding some unique feature to it could be a better option for the customer to buy your product. For example, let's say you come out with a mixer which is spill proof. Okay, the jars are spill proof, whereas the competitors' jars are just ordinary jars. So even though you price your product same as your competitor, because your product has a unique feature, has a spill proof lid or a cover, you have a advantage over your competitor and you will exploit that advantage. You will you will advertise that advantage to attract your customers. Okay, so that's a distinctive competency. That's about business level decisions. So what are the competitive strategies you can adopt? So here is it, cost leadership. There are 4 strategies to adopt in a competitive leadership. Okay, to be competitive. So cost leadership. So you're the cheapest. You're able to produce a product. Yes, Maruti 800, Alto, Maruti Swift. These are examples. Okay, so cost leadership. So you will talk about being the cheapest. Okay, even today, if you take all the cars which are available in the market. Okay, so since somebody's brought up the example of cars, I will use the same example. Even today, if you take the example of all the cars which are available in the market, I'm saying standard. I'm not talking about nano and things like that. I'm talking about a standard car. Okay, whether it is Maruti's Alto or Hyundai Santro or Ford's Palio, whichever the entry level products of each company. If you look at that, okay, even today Maruti is the cheapest. You can't beat a Maruti car. At any point, if you pick any car, Alto will be the cheapest. Okay, so that is a leadership because it is the cheapest car and it has established its brand name. Okay, it has created a brand which is widely recognized, widely accepted, and everybody knows. If you go to the rural areas and talk about a Volkswagen, people might not know. But the moment you say Maruti, they recognize the brand name. Okay, so it has created itself for itself a competitive advantage in terms of price and in terms of brand. So these are what strategies are about. So cost leadership is one of them, being the cheapest. Okay, focused cost leadership, being the cheapest in a narrow market segment. So, for example, if you take the examples of I don't know how many of you all know about Renault pens. Have you all heard about Renault pens? They don't come anymore, but maybe 10, 12 years back, there used to be something called as Renault pens. So Renault pens were introduced. Okay, at that point of time, they were the cheapest in the ballpoint market. So when you think of a ballpoint pen, okay, people would all automatically buy Renaults because they were the cheapest. They were more like use and throw rather than being a product. Okay, pens were the cheapest. Rotomac came later. Reynolds was the first one to come into the market in a narrow segment. So the ballpoint, so pens is a very vast segment, isn't it? You have gel pens, you have fountain pens, you have ballpoint pens, you have so many different types of pens, right? You have color pens and this and that. Under ballpoint pens, Reynolds was the cheapest. Okay, it was more like a use and throw product. You used to get refills, but the cost of the refill was almost 60-70% as the cost of the pen. So most of the people would just use a Reynolds pen and throw it and buy a new pen. So that is a focused cost leadership. They focused only on ballpoint pens, and they came out with the cheapest ballpoint pens. That is focused cost leadership. Okay, and then differentiation. Differentiation, is nothing but a unique feature of the product, a special kind of niche feature of the product which nobody else in the market has. And then focused differentiation, serving the needs of customers in one or two markets. Okay, one or two markets. So can you give me an example? Uh, Focused differentiation. Can you give me an example? Can anybody think of a focused differentiation? Have you heard of Armani suits or Seville Row suits? Have you heard of these two? Armani suits and Seville Row suits. Seville Row is a lane. Okay, it's a lane. Seville Row. Suits stitched over there are not sold across the world. They are sold in very select outlets. Okay, that is focused differentiation, serving the needs of customers in one or two market niche. Rolex watches, yes. So the Rolex watch is a good example. You will not find Rolex watch in every watch store, right? You won't find it in every watch store, but it is selectively sold in upmarket watch stores, isn't it? Time stores which sell upmarket watches, only there you'll find these Rolex watches. So these are focused differentiation. So you get a competitive advantage using a focused differentiation. Not everyone can afford it, and very few people will buy that product also. So you will sell your product only to those people who can afford it. Okay, that's focused differentiation. So that's the four generic competitive advantages. Then comes the global strategy. So we talked about function level strategy, business level strategy, now the global strategy under classification of strategy, implementing strategies, formulating strategies. So implementing. So global strategy. So multinational companies, how to go multinational and how to stay multinational. So global standardization. So your products you you produce in one place but sell across the world. Okay, that's a way of global strategy. Okay, examples are shoes. If you look at any of the Reebok, the Nike, the Puma shoes, they are all sold in China. Okay, so it is produced in one place, but they are sold across the world, and the same models more or less will be sold across the world. Okay, so that is global standardization. Localization. What is localization? You are focusing on specific products of for that region or for that country. Okay, and you manufacture a product or you produce a product only for that region and for that country. So you have different production units in different countries, and you produce goods according to local needs, okay, according to what is required in that particular country or region. The if you look at Google's what do you say, um, Google software, the search algorithm that is very specific to India. You will not find that anywhere else in the world. So if you're in India, if you put your location as India, and if you do a search on Google, you will get results which are very relevant only to India. So that is localization. Okay, the product is universal, but it is localized, or it is tuned to cater to the local market. Okay, so that is another way of global strategy. Transnational. What do you understand by transnational? See, here it is. So global standardization focus on the cost reduction from economies of scale and localization economies. So I give you an example of shoes, which are produced in China but sold across the world. Business model: produce a low cost strategy on a global scale. No product customization for different markets. Okay, and then it's localization. It works to increase profitability by offering goods or services that are customized for each different national or regional market. Localization works when customer tastes vary among nations and when cost pressures are not too intense. So I give an example of search engine, Google search engine. They customize it for the local markets. You cannot have a search engine which is relevant for USA, applicable for India, or applicable for Indonesia, because it is very different. So you localize. The product is universal, the search engine is universal, but you tweak it, you customize it to the local needs. That's another way of being a global. Okay, the customized products have increased value in the local market served. However, customization requires smaller production runs and limits the company's ability to benefit from cost reductions of mass production. So there is a certain amount of advantage, but you cannot get the benefit of mass production. This strategy can work if added value supports higher pricing and thus enables the company to recoup its higher cost. Okay, so if you look at India, what can you think of localization for India? Take the example of pizzas. Okay, so generally, if you go across the world, what kind of pizza do you get if you order a pizza across the world? Okay, your standard pizzas across the world, anywhere in the world, the pizzas are usually uh, chicken or beef, chicken or pork. Sorry, not beef, chicken or pork, pepperoni or chicken pizza. These are the standard pizzas across the world. But when you come to India, okay, you have to customize it because you will have no paneer. Under paneer also you will have thick paneer, you'll have some other paneer, okay, paneer labada or something. So it is to standardize it, to localize it to the taste of the local population. Now, when they localize it, they are definitely going to increase the price by a little bit. Okay, if you buy a pizza in US versus a pizza in India, you will find that the cost of pizza is slightly higher in India. Don't convert the dollars into rupees. Okay, don't convert the dollars into rupees. If you convert the dollars into rupees, then India will be costly. But if you compare it as a part of a standard of living, okay, if you compare it as a part of standard of living, then the pizza in the US is cheaper than a pizza in India, because there is a lot of localization in India. So to recover that localization cost, the pizza companies do charge a little bit more. Okay, that is a strategy. It works only if you're able to recover that cost of localizing the product or creating a unique product for that particular region. Okay, it also can work if it creates greater local demand, which can allow the company to reduce its costs through economies of scale in local markets, or the requirement or the need for that product is so high that the cost of production automatically comes down to a higher production. Okay, that's localization. Transnational is used when the requirements for local responsiveness are high and at the same time cost pressures are strong. Okay, so the requirement for local product is high, but you have to maintain or create a cost competitive advantage. You have to maintain your cost also. Cost pressures are high. You have to reduce your cost as low as possible and at the same time provide maximum local content or localization. It is not easy to combine high local responsiveness with low cost structure, and a few, if any, companies have actually been able to accomplish it. Okay, one way is to use centralized manufacturing of standard large scale components and then to augment that with local assembly plants where local product features are added. Thus, the company can achieve many of the scale economies that go along with centralized manufacturing, while at the same time providing local responsiveness by differentiating the product for each national market. So, can you give me an example of this where there's mass production, but after the product reaches the particular region or nation, there's localization of that? Can you give me an example? Can anybody think of an example where there is mass production, but it is localized according to the needs of each nation or each region? Can you think of an example? Come on, folks, wake up. Can you think of an example where you have mass production and then when it reaches the region or the country, it's localized? Mobile phones, can you explain how? All are manufactured in China. Okay. Face masks, explain please. Okay, Rohit, I understand all the phones are manufactured in China, so that's a mass production. How does the localization happen? Face masks. Soil, how do you manufacture? Language settings and other related settings are done based on delivering countries. Yes, good. So your software is tweaked, isn't it? Your software is tweaked according to the region where the phone is going to be sold, isn't it? Another example is recently, 5G has been introduced, but US 5G works on a different band, okay, compared to the 5G across other nations, other European nations. So you will see that the phone is produced in the same, mass production, but the small component, which is the 5G, the wireless, component, is localized for US. It is localized differently for US, and it is localized differently for European countries because of the difference in the band. Okay, so 5G works on a band which is below, I think, below 5 mm or 9 mm or something like that, whereas the European countries work on a band which is higher than that. So that is an example of localization. Yes, they expand use are catering to heavy gigahertz. Yes, so that is how it is localized. The product is the same, the features are the same. Okay, the software is the same. Only thing which changes is a chip which is used for the 5G connectivity. Okay, that's the only thing which will change. Okay, cars also, yes, cars also, some of them, not all of them, some of them. Okay, not all of them. So these are examples of transnational where you produce mass production, but you tweak it, okay, or you make minor changes to cater to the local needs. So you get the benefit of both the mass production as well as the localization. So here you are getting dual benefit. Then comes international. Okay, it is used by companies that do not have great pressure to produce low cost goods and do not have great pressure to be locally responsive. This would be the case if company is selling a product that serves universal needs and if the company does not face significant competition. This is an enviable position to be in. Example, can you think of an example? There were lots of examples. For international, there were lots of examples. There were lots of examples. Can anyone give me one? What do you think of French perfumes? Do you think they are produced locally? Louis Vuitton, yes. French perfumes. Okay, French perfumes. Any of you? Do you think any of those are produced locally? They are all produced in France, isn't it? But they are sold across the world. Okay, and they are not localized. They are not. The fragrance does not change according to the local needs, isn't it? Because there's no cost pressure and there's no need for it to be localized. No need for it to be locally responsive. So French perfumes are an example of international products. Okay, companies in this position usually centralize the product development while establishing manufacturing or marketing operations in each major geographic area where they do business. So you might have a manufacturing unit in different countries, but the product which is manufactured is the same as the one which is manufactured by the original company in the original plant. They may do some local customization of the product and the marketing strategy. So marketing strategy might change, okay, or the way they package the product, and or the way they write the names of the product. So if you go to a company, to a Middle East company, they might write the name in the local Arabic language also. Or if you come to India, they might write the name in Hindi also. Okay, so that minor changes will be there, but switch watches, yes. But the product more or less is standard. Okay. Irrespective of anywhere in the world you buy the product will be the same. I mean, okay, so they do marketing strategy might change, but it is limited. In most international companies, marketing and product strategy are controlled by home office. So the place where the main office is located, marketing strategy and product are controlled over there. Okay. So this is about international. However, the risk in international strategy is that eventually competitors do emerge. So somewhere along the line, you will find a competitor. So for example, if you look at the French perfumes we are talking about, eventually you add the local companies like Park Avenue. Uh, who else is there? Old Spice. There's so many companies which came up, isn't it? Eventually competitors will come. Therefore, managers need to be proactive in reducing the cost in order to be prepared for the competition. Thus, in the long run, an international strategy may not be viable. It is not that it is not viable. Okay, you have to be very careful when you adopt this strategy, and you have to look that you are able to maintain your competitive advantage. Companies pursuing it need to move towards a global standardization strategy or even a transnational strategy before the competition catches up with them. Okay, so you will have to think about globalization or about transnational strategy. So that's about business level strategy, functional level strategy, and then formulating strategies. Now the last part is implementing strategy. Where is implementing strategy? Okay, developing and implementing. Before that, we have other global questions. Which markets to enter? When to enter? First or last? At what scale? Are you exporting? Are you licensing? Are you franchising? Are you go into a joint venture? Are you setting up a wholly owned subsidiary? So these are the questions you will have to think, because all these affect your competitive advantage. Okay. If you're going to export, how much of competition is there in the market where you're going to export? Okay. If you're going to manufacture a licensing product, what is the licensing fee you'll have to pay? All this franchising, what is the royalty? How many franchisees are there in that area? What is the benefit in your locality? Is there is the cross selling of the franchisees allowed? All these are the things you'll have to think. Joint ventures are two companies joining together to set up a new company. Okay, and wholly owned subsidiaries is the where you set up your own company, which is a part of the parent company. Okay, next is corporate level strategy. So we talked about global, we talked about functional level, we talked about business, we talked about global. Next is corporate level strategy. Okay. So what is corporate level strategy? Corporate level strategy involves a long-term perspective. So you're thinking a long-term, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Managers need to continually consider how changes that are taking place in the industry, in technology, and the competition will affect the company's current business model. Okay. So if you take the example of cars, because we have been talking about cars, let's take the example of cars. How does it change? Okay. In technology, you have newer engines coming up. You see customer preferences moving away from diesel to petrol. Okay. All these. How are the new entrants, competition into the market? How are these electric vehicles coming into the market? That's competition, isn't it? How will this affect the company's current business model? Focusing on corporate level strategy can help managers recognize trends and future opportunities so that they can position the company to compete successfully in the changing environment. Okay. So if you look in the current scenario, the stress is on electric vehicles. Okay. So focusing, from diesel vehicles to petrol and electric vehicles. And they know eventually electric vehicles are going to be the future of cars, right? So if your company is not going to adopt, or if it is not going to switch, if it's not going to be, changing its strategy, if it's still going to be focused on diesel vehicles, then it loses competitive edge, which it had created because of the price difference between diesel and petrol. Maybe one of the reasons it will lose a competitive edge because eventually diesel will get phased out. Nobody will buy diesel vehicles. Okay, so that's a corporate level, the highest level. Corporate level managers need to constantly be analyzing how emerging technologies might impact the business models, how customer needs and customer groups might change as a result, and what new distinctive competencies will be needed. So, right now, the biggest challenge in electric vehicles is batteries. Okay, because you can run only so much, you can get only so much mileage with the one charge in a battery. Suppose, I'm just saying, suppose, let us say Toyota comes out with a battery, okay, which on one single charge can run for 1,000 kilometers. Okay, and it just takes you, let's say, 4 hours or 5 hours to charge the battery fully. Won't that be a competitive advantage for that? And then, if Toyota implements that into its electric vehicles, what is the competitive advantage it will have? It will beat all the competition. Okay, so the corporate level managers will think that if we have, or if we have that advantage, if we have a competitive advantage, how can we change our business model? Instead of now becoming, manufacturing cars and selling only cars, they might become suppliers of battery to other car manufacturers, electric car manufacturers. Okay, so they might change the business model, saying that we will not only manufacture cars or electric cars, but we will also become suppliers of this particular battery to other car manufacturers. So there is an additional business. There is a change in the business model. Okay, and how? Because the customer needs have changed. Customers have shifted to electric vehicles, and they're targeting customers to buy electric vehicles. So these are all new distinctive competencies that will be needed. They might look at all of this. That is corporate level strategy. Thus, the corporate level strategy is used to redefine and reposition the company's business model as needed to achieve and maintain its position in the changing environment through taking advantage of opportunities and defending against threats. That's exactly an example I gave you of Toyota becoming a battery supplier from just being a car maker. Okay, that's an example. Growing the company, different strategies of growing the company. Now you need to grow the company, isn't it? You cannot maintain the same level of profitability, you cannot maintain the same level of revenue throughout the life of the company. You need to grow the company. So there are different strategies to grow the company. How? The need to ensure it is in line with the company's goals and strategies. Whatever you adopt, it should be in line with the goals and strategies. Horizontal integration. So you buy your competitors, or you merge with your competitors, so that you get the economies of scale. You get a larger market share. You might get a larger portfolio of your products. Okay. So it could be a horizontal integration, merge with your competitors. Vertical integration, merge with the supply chain. So you might buy your raw material supplier so that you have a better control over your raw materials, and thereby you're able to reduce your cost, and you get a competitive cost advantage. That is another way. Okay, so vertical integration could be upstream or downstream. Downstream could be you buy, or you set up your own distribution chain. Okay, so it could be a downstream that way. Upstream could be buying a supplier, okay, or taking over your supplier. It could be any of those. Strategic alliances, so you have a long-term cooperation. So now if you look at this, these strategies are adopted not only by companies but even by countries. Okay, strategic alliances, okay, you enter into. So recently there was a I would say, just a couple of days back, there was a agreement which was signed. Does anybody know what that was? It was between countries. Does anybody know what that agreement was? And it has an impact. Okay, that is why I'm talking about it. It is very relevant. Does anybody know what it was? It is Asian Economic Regional Cooperative Agreement or something like that. It's more about the Asian countries. So you have China, you have Indonesia, you have these countries, the developing countries, which are participant of this agreement, to make to open up the economy between these countries. Okay, so there is a free trade agreement kind of thing between these countries. I can't remember what the exact name is. It is joined. It was signed about 2 or 3 days back, and India is not a participant of it because it said that China is going to control that. So we don't want to be a participant because of that. It's recent. I can find out the name and tell you. In the next class, I will tell you what the name is. I can't remember the name on top of my head, but it has got to do with these developing countries. Mostly, Vietnam, China, Indonesia, India, Pakistan. Okay, these countries are the signatories of that agreement, right? So that is another way. So its strategic alliances are not only within the between the countries, between the companies. It can also be between countries. Even countries adopt this method to maintain the competitive advantage of that particular country. Okay, strategic alliances, diversification, setting up new industries, venturing into new products. Okay, that is diversification. So this is how you will grow your company. Horizontal integration, that is merging with your existing competitors. Vertical integration is supply chain integration, upstream and downstream. Strategic alliances, long-term cooperation. You come to an agreement saying that, okay, so example is, I don't know whether you know Nissan and Renault. Have you heard of these two companies? Nissan is a Japanese company. Renault is a French company, right? Have you heard of these two car companies? Right? They have a strategic alliance. Okay. So if you look at the product, Hyundai and Kia, yes, Hyundai and Kia are more subsidiaries. Okay. They are the same companies. They are more or less subsidiaries. But Nissan and Renault are not subsidiaries. They have a strategic alliance. They are two different companies. They have a strategic alliance. Okay. The alliance is that the platform, any platform which is developed for a new vehicle, is going to be the same for both of these. Okay. Going to be the same. Recently, Toyota and Suzuki have also entered into a strategic alliance. Baleno, yes. Range Rover and Tata, yes. So these are all strategic alliances. Okay, long-term cooperations. Diversification is getting into new industry, getting into new product, producing something totally different than what you are producing till now. Okay, so example is Reliance. Reliance was mostly a petroleum company. But now, if you see, it has gone into retail, it has gone into telecommunication. So that is diversification into new industries, new areas. That is how the company is growing, isn't it? Petrol is stagnated. When it was producing petroleum products, it started stagnating. So that is why it ventured into retail, it ventured into telecommunication, isn't it? So that is diversification to keep the company growing. Okay, what is the risk with diversification? Changing conditions can be firm or industry specific. Okay, you might think that for example, retail is going to be very economical, very profitable, and you might venture into it, and suddenly you find that there's a downturn in that particular industry, in the retail industry or in the fashion industry, and you're not able to compete well with the established players. That risk is always there. Okay, so that's a condition of changing. Okay, the situation or the condition changed over there. Diversification for wrong reasons. Okay, so you are not doing well in your particular business. So your current business is not doing well. So you're trying to diversify to improve your earnings or to stabilize your earnings. You want to start looking at another business which can give you, returns. Okay, which may or may not work. Okay, it depends upon how much of your homework you have done on that particular industry, on that particular segment, on that particular product and things like that. So diversification for wrong reasons. Another very strong reason why that might fail is that you have no experience in that particular field. Okay, so that is what exactly happened with some of the companies. Can you tell what happened with that? They diversified into wrong lines and they lost. Loss created. Additional bureaucracy is created to manage a larger company. That's a risk with diversification. When you diversify, you're hiring more people, you're setting up more offices, and then you're making the company too bloated to manufacture. That's always a risk of diversification. So those are the risks for diversification. Okay, then the last point, developing and implementing strategies. The fifth step in the strategic planning process, developing and implementing strategies. Okay, five, developing and implementing that strategy. The strategy needs to be implemented. So you have thought of the strategy, you have analyzed the external environment, you have analyzed the internal environment. Okay, and then you have looked at the, what is the fourth point? Business model, isn't it? Yeah, you have formulated your strategy, and now the fifth point is you have implementing. How are you going to implement your strategy? You have already thought of everything, you have done your homework, you have done all the work, and now you have to put it into action. Develop and put it into action. Develop and implement is nothing but put it into action. How are you going to do that? That is what you're going to see. Implementation involves considerations about organization design, which includes organization structure, control environment and system, corporate culture, and things like that. Okay, so how is it going to be implemented? Who is going to be responsible for what part of the implementation? Which level of management is going to be involved at what level? So is the middle manager responsible for making the decision, or is it only the senior management which is responsible for making the decisions? How much of authority does the middle management have? All these are developing and implementing strategies. Okay, so organizational structure, that's the first part. It specifies who should do what, how they should do it, and how they should work together. So that's example of what I gave. Is it the senior management which is responsible for making the decisions, or is it the middle management? Okay, who should do what, then how, and how should they work together? The three decisions to be made about organization structure are how to group tasks into functions and how to group functions into business units or divisions. So, are you going to put them according to the product they produce or according to the geographical area where the product is produced? How are you going to classify them? Groups into functions. Okay. So, are you going to say all the units which work in India come under Indian head? Are you going to put it that way? Or are you going to say that all the units which manufacture anything related to footwear is going to come under one head? Anything which is related to the cars is going to come under another, and anything which is related to machinery is going to come under a third head. How are you going to classify these groups, okay, into functions? How are you going to group these functions into business units and divisions? We talked about business units and divisions, right? So we'll call a production unit, marketing unit. How are you going to classify them? Okay, all that will matter. How to allocate authority and responsibility to functions and divisions. So who is responsible for what? Okay, so who is responsible to make decisions at what level? At the level of production, is it the production manager who is responsible, or is it the section head who is responsible for the production decisions? Okay, at what level? Who's going to be having the authority to take decisions? And along with authority comes the responsibility for each function. Okay, how to increase the coordination or integration between and among functions and divisions? So you might have multiple functions, you might have multiple divisions. How do you ensure there is coordination among them? How do you maintain and increase them as the structure evolves, as the business grows, as the diversification happens? Okay, or the integration of supply chain, whatever happens, integration or diversification, whatever happens, how are you going to maintain and structure these, restructure these, so that there's cohesiveness between these functions and divisions? Okay, that is what is you look at organizational structure. So there are different organizational structures: tall versus flat. Tall is vertical, hierarchy. Okay, flat is horizontal, uniform. So you have multiple production levels. You have production managers who are responsible for each of the productions. Okay, so you have a flat structure, and then under the production manager or production supervisor, you will have, workers. Okay, so it's a flat structure. Whereas in a tall structure, you will have a production manager, you will have an assistant production manager, you will have a production supervisor, you will have a flow supervisor, and then you'll have workers. So tall versus flat, centralized versus decentralized. Is the organization consolidated into one, or have you distributed the authority and the responsibility to various people? So they are independently responsible for their own decisions rather than the decisions made at a central level. Okay, communication between the functions is also very important. So how do they interact? How do they communicate? Now, for example, let us say, so they're talking about the same thing, how to implement. Here is the business level, functional level. Okay, this is nothing but implementation. So these are all strategies which can be implemented. There is a raw material which is used by two companies, not two companies, two production units. Okay, let us say there is a saree manufacturing unit. Okay, and let us say a dress manufacturing unit. So these are two units of a garment manufacturer. Okay, now both of these manufacture sarees and silk dress material. Okay, now if let's say the dress material manufacturing unit bought silk, okay, it bought silk yarn. Okay, it was available at a very cost effective, very cheap price. So it needed, let us say, 1,000 kgs. Instead of buying 1,000 kgs, it bought 1,500 kgs because it was available at a very, very cheap price. So it wanted to use or make use of that, bulk purchase. So the condition was that if you buy 1,500 kgs of, yarn, or meters or whatever it is, we will give you at a very cheap price. That was a condition. So though they needed only 1,000, to make use of the cost effectiveness, they bought 1,500. You also have a saree manufacturing unit, which also requires silk yarn to manufacture the sarees. Now, if there's no communication between these two departments, okay, and excess yarn bought by the dress manufacturing unit will be wasted. It will not be used, okay, and it will be wasted. So even though they bought it at a cheap price, because 500 kgs of that is being wasted, the cost will go up. However, if there is communication between these two departments, that's the dress manufacturing department and the saree manufacturing department, they can work out what is the total requirement for both these units, okay, and then negotiate with the supplier to get a better price and make a bulk purchase, divide the purchase between the required needs of both the dress and saree unit, and then get the benefits not only of the cost but also of a good quantity. Okay, so that is how, or that is why communication between functions is very important. Okay, that's where communication plays a role in organizational structure. The next is control systems. Provide managers incentives to motivate the employees to work to increase efficiency, quality, innovation, and responsiveness to customers. Okay, how do you control? How do you maintain quality? How do you maintain the competitive advantage? How do you ensure your people are motivated? How do you ensure that the production doesn't suffer? Okay, it is being produced at the optimum level. They also provide feedback to managers on how well the company and the employees are succeeding in increasing these building blocks of competitive advantage. Okay, so there is regular to and fro communication, and you're always giving feedback to your managers, telling that this is how you have performed, this is your area of improvement, this is where you stand to gain if you do this. With this information, management can take decisions when needed to strengthen the business model. So you know that if the quality of a particular product is falling, you can always talk to the production manager of that particular unit and say, look, you need to work on your quality. The advantage we have, we are able to sell a higher number of units in the market is because our quality of the product is good. It is better than the competitors. If a product quality falls, then we will lose market share. So that's the feedback. That's the control system. Okay. And so we studied this. Oh no, sorry, I went back. Okay. Organizational culture. It includes all the norms, values, beliefs, and attitudes that people in the organization share.
It's the company's way of doing things, and it controls the way its members interact with one another and also with outside stakeholders. So you all hear, the culture, the work culture in this particular organization is, not very good. People can't thrive over there. So if the management is always, shooting down innovative ideas, okay, whenever somebody comes up with an innovative idea, the management says, no, 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 this is too risky, we will not go ahead with it. Then an innovative person will not thrive in that market. On the other hand, if you have another organization where the management encourages its employees to come out, think out of the box, come out with suggestions on ways to improve the product, ways to improve the processes, a person who is very innovative will thrive in that environment. That is organizational culture, values, beliefs, attitudes, ways of working, okay, all that. Different norms and values are appropriate in different types of organizations, and managers need to be intentional about cultivating and developing the organization norms and values that are appropriate in the organization. Okay. Furthermore, the structure of an organization affects its culture. In order to change the culture, it may be necessary to change the structure. So if you have a very authoritative kind of supervisors, then people will not feel motivated because they will, rather than ask, they will tell. Okay, and when people tell, it is not taken well. People don't accept that well. When they are asked something, when they are asked to do something, they are more responsive. If they're told to do something, they treat it as an authoritative order. Hence, they are not responsive. So the culture, the way, the structure of the organization, that also affects. Okay. So all these are examples of organizational culture. How do you implement your strategies? This is ultimately the critical step for the company. A strategy that is not implemented does not help very much. So if you have a plan, but if the plan is only on the paper, if it is not going to be put into action, it is useless. It is not going to help. Okay. There is a discussion in the material about how to implement. Okay. Okay. So we'll leave this for tomorrow's class. We'll stop here. We have exceeded the time limit.